The following segment on KROC AM is sponsored and paid for by Meshbesher Spence.
Andrew Davick joins us this morning from Meshbesher Spence. Andrew, good to see you again.
Good to see you guys.
Whenever I see your billboard on Civic Center Drive, I always say, "Hey, Andrew." Just did it yesterday. Hey, Andrew.
My kids think it's pretty funny.
Of course they do. We were just saying
and
that.
It looks just like that is you.
Kids don't
Dad.
appreciate it all.
No.
Well, now I have a beard, so that changes.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it
But
does.
the firm
You're
won't let me
radical
have
now.
that on a billboard. So
Is that right?
Clean it up.
yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, it is summertime.
You're living life on the edge.
I
Wait,
tell
no.
ya, yeah.
You're supposed to grow a beard in the winter. Why are you growing one in the summer?
Well, it's easier.
Okay.
Just to keep it
All right.
than to
Got
shave
it.
it off at this point.
Very good. We're talking motorcycles today.
Absolutely.
And a lot of motorcycles are out there, and a lot of deer are out there, too.
Oh.
I always
a lot of
thought
deer.
that because, motorcycles, especially a Harley, is a little noisier, that would kind of keep the deer away.
Yeah, I think
But it doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work. It's interesting you raise the deer issue, and we, obviously we talk a lot about insurance as I speak with you guys, and one of the things that people should keep in mind if they have a deer vehicle accident, that although it may not have involved another motor vehicle, they still have no-fault coverage, even if the incident involves a deer. So if you are injured as a result, your no-fault coverage is still going to provide some coverage for you to pay
Even if
medical
the
bills
deer
and wage
has,
loss.
even if the deer has good coverage.
Yeah. Sometimes those deer have good umbrella policies to cover those losses, but not always. So you have to turn to your own coverage once in a while.
All right. But seriously, though, as far as coverage...
Yeah, so with motorcycles, a couple of things. I mean, one, during the summer months, we often see an uptick in motorcycle accidents. Obviously, that's because people are out on their motorcycles.
Sure.
The weather is nice. They're able to use them. And I think it's really important for motorists in Minnesota to pay a lot of attention to those motorcycles, because anytime that you have a motorcycle accident, typically the injuries are quite severe just because of the nature of the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, we as drivers need to pay better attention for those motorcycles on the road. And then we who own motorcycles, not me, I don't own one. I don't think my wife would let me own one. But those who own motorcycles need to make sure that they have adequate coverage, because if you are involved in a motorcycle accident, you're going to need significant coverage because your injuries are probably going to be pretty significant. And things such as no-fault coverage, which typically exist in automobile accident cases, that's an optional coverage for motorcycles. I would encourage anyone who has a motorcycle to go out and buy the no-fault coverage. So if you're in an accident, you're going to be able to get that $20,000 in medical coverage or the $20,000 in wage loss benefits.
Which is a drop in the bucket for the the $20,000, but obviously necessary.
Absolutely, and I think it's also really important for those who own motorcycles to make sure that you have sufficient underinsured motorist coverage on that bike, because your automobile policy is not going to apply if you're occupying a motorcycle. So you're going to have to turn to that motorcycle policy if you own and insure it. And unfortunately, a lot of insurers will offer you a 30, 60, or 2550 UIM coverage, and
UIM, underinsured motorists,
or even uninsured. If you get hit by an uninsured driver of an automobile. So it's really important to make sure you have sufficient coverages to protect yourself, because if you are in that accident, it's safe to assume the injuries are going to be severe.
Yeah, you talk about defensive driving, and I just you need to do that with a car, but it's got to be triple the amount. You have to anticipate, if you're riding on a motorcycle, that knucklehead doesn't see you.
Yeah, absolutely,
and will probably pull over or switch lanes in front of you.
Absolutely. After I leave here, I'm going to meet with a family who we represent. He was in a motorcycle accident about a month ago, and he was simply traveling down the highway, and inexplicably a driver turned right in front of him, and he hit him and suffered very serious injuries.
Well, sometimes a car can be in your blind spot, and a car is so much larger than a motorcycle. I get nervous when I see motorcycles, because I just think I want everybody to see that motorcycle. I'm glad that I just saw that motorcycle.
Absolutely.
And sometimes one will pop up, quote unquote, that you didn't really notice before until they're right there beside you.
Absolutely. You have to be, as a driver, if you see motorcycles, be hyper vigilant, make sure you're really paying attention, and because ultimately you need to help protect them, and not act recklessly. Get off your cell phones. Don't be eating and driving. Don't be distracted.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were saying for motorcyclists.
Yeah, definitely get off your cell phone if you're on your motorcycle.
I've seen it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Not maybe going 65 down the interstate, but just on surface roads in town.
All right. So bottom line is make sure your insurance policy, you have to have a separate motorcycle insurance policy. A regular
Correct.
automobile policy will not cover a motorcycle.
Correct. You're going to want to purchase a separate motorcycle policy
Talk
for
to
that
your agent.
motorcycle. Talk to your agent. Make sure they
Yeah.
understand your needs, and to make sure your coverages are adequate.
How about little mopeds or things that you don't require a motorcycle license for?
A little bit different. I mean, it depends on the nature of the vehicle. It may be covered under a homeowner's policy, but typically those also have a separate insurance policy that you purchase for those.
Again, let your agent know
Absolutely.
you've got one and what the coverage needs to be.
Absolutely.
All right. And if anybody would like to get a hold of you at Meshbesher and Spence, what's the best way to do that, Andrew?
Two ways, www.meshbesher.com or call us at 507-280-8090.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Appreciate it. You guys have a great week.
Thank you.